KSBW Action News 8 begins with breaking news.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Clark. Dan Green is off tonight. We are beginning tonight with 3 breaking news stories. A deadly officer-involved shooting in Salinas, a high-speed chase for a wanted felon in Watsonville, and a swimmer from Scotland reported missing in Parnell, now accused of trying to fake his own death. We're going to start tonight with Action News reporter Christopher Salas. He's live in Salinas with details on this afternoon's officer-involved shooting.
Aaron, according to Police Chief Adele Fresse, a 20-year-old female has died as a result of that shooting, and it ended a standoff that lasted about 2 hours. Now, from where we're standing here, you can actually see the car in which that woman barricaded herself inside. It's that dark blue SUV with that pink covering on the back. This is on Laurel Drive between Tout and Sanborn Road. At least 2 and as many as 3 officers opened fire on that woman at around 1:30 this afternoon. Now, Chief Fresse said the initial call came in just before 11 o'clock. It was a report of a woman threatening someone with a weapon. When officers arrived on scene, they found the suspect, who then barricaded herself inside that car. Fresse said the Monterey County Behavioral Health Unit was out here, as well as the hostage negotiation team, and they were trying to talk to that woman, but eventually she did something that prompted officers to open fire.
We had been speaking with her for some time. She had at least 1 weapon. The information I have is that she had a handgun, at least 1, if not more.
And the DA's office is now taking over this investigation. The officers involved in the shooting have been placed on administrative leave. Right now, Chief Fresse said she's at the station talking with the officers, and she's evaluating their well-being after this shooting. Meanwhile, there were reports from neighbors that there may have been an infant or a child inside that SUV during the standoff and the shooting. However, when we asked Chief Fresse about that, she said that was not the case. Aaron?
All right, Christopher, thank you. We're also following breaking news out of Watsonville, where a wanted felon was arrested after a police chase and a multi-car crash, a violent crash. It ended at the entrance of Manresa State Beach. Action News reporter Phil Gomez is live at that scene with the latest for us. Phil?
Well, Aaron, behind me you can see the last vehicle standing, and it's barely standing at that. The owner declined to speak to us on camera, but he told me he had been fishing all day when he heard a commotion but didn't think anything about it. And of course, when he came up here, he was very disappointed. You can see they're getting ready to tow it away. That's the last of the 6 vehicles. This all began after 2 o'clock in Watsonville on Alta Vista Drive Avenue, when a known gang member wanted out of Monterey and Santa Cruz was spotted by Watsonville police in a black SUV. That's when the chase began. The suspect, Loretta Riesbe, led the CHP and police on a high-speed chase reaching 90 miles an hour at some point. Riesbe lost control of his car after a tire blew out. The black SUV crashed into 6 vehicles parked on San Andreas Road. All of them were severely damaged.
We were just down on the beach looking at the beautiful day and came walking up, and my vehicle was in a full-on collision with, I guess the Watsonville Police Department was in pursuit of a car, and the car smashed into all our parked vehicles, and I came up here and my vehicle's totaled.
The suspect did try to make a run for it, but a police dog stopped him. There were no injuries, fortunately, although the suspect did receive minor injuries. Now, may be responsible for a number of armed robberies in Watsonville as well as Santa Cruz County. Aaron?
Phil, thank you. So now to our 3rd breaking news story tonight. A bizarre twist in the search for a Scottish man who was reported missing and may have drowned at Carmel Beach earlier this week. Well, tonight, investigators say they believe the whole thing was a hoax, and the man is actually wanted in Scotland on 24 rape charges. Action News reporter Felix Cortez broke the story on Twitter today. He joins us now with more on this surprise twist.
And Aaron, police no longer looking for a missing person who they're now searching for a wanted man who may have staged his disappearance to escape justice. Take a good look at this man. He's Kim Gordon, a Scottish man wanted in his homeland on 24 counts of rape. Now he's wanted by U.S. Marshals, accused of faking his own disappearance from a Carmel beach.
It appears as we stand here today that this person never went swimming and that he, in fact, may be using it as a ruse of sorts to try to avoid criminal prosecution out of Scotland.
On Monday, Gordon's son reported his father missing from Monastery Beach. The son told police he went for a hike while his dad went for a swim. Dad was never seen again, which prompted an all-out search on land and water, which continued through Wednesday. Problem is, nobody saw Gordon go into the water.
But as we dug deeper and as the deputies started looking into it and with the assistance of the detectives from the sheriff's office, it started to crumble and fall apart. And it looks like he is trying to avoid prosecution out of Scotland.
Gordon is described as a street vendor who sells jewelry in Scotland. The Scottish man and his 17-year-old son flew to California via Los Angeles, prompting more questions as to why or how they ended up on the Central Coast. The son's story just didn't match up.
Said we rented a car, but there's no rental receipt. There's no proof of this. One story is, or one rumor out there is that he hitchhiked or they hitchhiked. We can't show how they got here, which is where, the stories start, facts don't start to match up, more questions start to get asked, and that's how this really started to fall apart for them.
The accused rapist, believed to be fleeing from justice in Scotland, now wanted by U.S. federal agents.
The U.S. Marshals Service is becoming involved, and they're going to help us or take over looking for this individual. It's their specialty. They're very good at it.
Now, Gordon's 17-year-old son returned to Scotland Thursday. Investigators not ruling out he may face charges of filing a false police report and also aiding and abetting a wanted fugitive.
And we talked about this a little bit earlier, that the amount of resources that were put into trying to find this man, the divers, the search crews.
It was a 3-day search involving multiple agencies, and it's really unfortunate that all that manpower and resources were
devoted to something that appears to be a hoax. All right. Thank you, Felix. We want to show you Kim Gordon's picture one more time. He has brown hair, blue eyes. He's 5 feet 11 inches and weighs about 200 pounds. If you have any information regarding the whereabouts of Kim Gordon, perhaps you may have seen him or think you have seen him, you are urged to call 911. And new at 6, new numbers out today show most of California is out of a drought thanks to a lot of rain and back-to-back snowstorms in the Sierra. I think we could keep going with the back-to-back. It's a whole lot of snow. Let's leave it at that. We all know that snow is certainly great for the state's water supply, and it's piling up in the Sierra, and it's also bringing with it some problems, especially on the roads. And when you see images like this, you can sort of understand. They've got no place to put it or push it. Some people are actually calling it too much of a good thing. With more snow expected on Sunday, ski resorts are preparing yet again for another busy weekend on the slopes and the roadways. Action News reporter Brian Hickey went to Sugar Bowl to see what 500 inches of snow looks like and how the staff there is coping.
The first day of March, and the snow continues to come down at Sugar Bowl Resort after a February to remember.
February has been absolutely incredible and record-setting. 281 inches for the month of February. That beats 92-93 when we saw 267 inches.
That's more than 23 feet of snow in the shortest month of the year.
And this certainly illustrates how much snow there is here at Sugar Bowl. This is the Sugar Bowl Race Department office. It is now completely buried under what is now a ski run.
Digging has become a seemingly endless task to keep buildings and chairlifts accessible.
Some days it is a battle between road closures and digging. Some days is a challenge.
For Ski Patrol, that means getting on the mountain before sunrise to do avalanche control and dig out and reestablish rope boundaries.
Our job is to get the mountain open, and Sugar Bowl's got a unique program here. We push hard, and we get this resort open.
Alongside them, a trusty group of trained avalanche rescue dogs who know how to blur the lines between work and fun.
Oh, he found me. Good job, Buster. This is his reward now. We'll have to play a little tug of war.
These guys are on standby in case we have an avalanche. They're rescue trained, rescue ready. It's what they do, it's their job, and they love it.
With February in the record books, question now is, what will March bring for a community tired of digging?
The record is 880 inches.
Do you want to see that?
I do. My wife doesn't.
Brian Hickey reporting for us tonight. Our chief meteorologist Lee Solomon joins us now with more on, well, all that snow means that we're out of a drought. That's the good news.
Yeah, we've had a couple of good years. You know, if you remember the last few years, we've had a couple of good ones. And that, you know, the drought doesn't happen in 1 year, and we don't get out of it in 1 year, so it takes a few years, and then there's groundwater to talk about. So there's a lot that goes into it, so just because it rains a bunch doesn't mean we're out of it. But in this case, it does, because we've had a couple of really good years, and we have a monster snowpack, and the reservoirs, they're basically full, or, you know, they've topped off, so they're actually letting water out. So we can do a little comparison just between what we had in January, and you can see all the shaded colors. You can see the legend on the side where it was dry or moderate drought or even severe drought. So we were already in a better place than we've been in a while. And look at it now. I actually don't remember. I'd have to look back. It's been a really long time since basically the entire state was out of the drought. So it's incredibly great news for us. And we'll talk about this more in the coming days, it all depends on the next 2 years, right? Because we really only fill up the water in the reservoirs during the big years. All the other years we drain them down. So it's the big years that really save us. Here's just a look, and you can just really look at the last column, percentage of normal right now. Salinas is running at 117%, 105% in Santa Cruz, Watsonville at 137%, and some of our local reservoirs doing really good. Loch Lomond is 100% full. The water level's over the bank, so it's actually spilling out. Going down to San Lorenzo. San Antonio, Nacimiento, still a ways to go between 33 and 70%, but we will work on that, Aaron, in the next 5 days. Believe me, a lot of rain headed down to Big Sur, so good news for those reservoirs as well. And we'll just keep our fingers crossed as the spring melt goes slowly and calmly. Lee mentioned this. I want to mention it again. Local reservoir levels, Lake Nacimiento, 69%, Lake San Antonio, 33%. Lake San Antonio is always the last one to fill up. Loch Lomond at 100%. A lot of the reservoirs across the state are actually letting water out. Also, some good news for people who live in the city of Santa Cruz. You may remember last year the city was under stage 1 water restrictions as a precaution. Well, today the city's water conservation manager says he doesn't expect any restrictions this year. On the crime watch, after 10 years hiding out in Mexico, Ivan Tapia Ramirez was arraigned in a Santa Cruz County courtroom today. He's charged with the 2009 murder of 16-year-old Tyler Tenorio. Ramirez did not enter a plea today. Police say Ramirez is one of 5 gang members involved in the murder. Case is scheduled to be back in court March 19th. Convicted sex offender is back in the Monterey County Jail. Salvador Mondragon was arrested yesterday. He is facing sexual battery charges after police say he groped an 18-year-old man. Mondragon owns a private security company in Salinas. He's accused of touching the victim during a strip search training exercise. It is not Mondragon's first brush with the law. He was convicted of sexual battery charges back in 2014. In Santa Cruz, this woman, Leticia Lamas, is behind bars accused of vandalizing 24 cars on SoCal Avenue. Police tell Action News that 25 tires were slashed on February 16th alone. Lamas was arrested this morning on felony vandalism charges. Coming up, taking guns off the streets. More on the program that takes guns away from people banned from having them. The CEO of San Francisco Giants caught on camera getting into a squabble with his wife. What Larry Baer is saying about that altercation. Bay Area News Watch, evacuation orders lifted, but the damage has been done. A look at the damage left behind in Guerneville after the Russian River flooded thousands of homes. Plus, a big change in leadership at the OCO Theater in downtown Monterey. How it could help the theater keep its doors open. We'll have those stories and much more when we come back. A rescued seabird with some serious smarts.
We don't have her tethered to anything. Her wings aren't clipped. She can fly at any point.
How a full-flighted, red-footed booby landed herself a new gig as the Monterey Bay Aquarium's new ambassador. Plus, a man caught on camera punching a woman in Santa Cruz is now behind bars. How police caught him. And our top story, taxing our tap water? a look at the governor's proposal and how much more you could see tacked onto your water bill.
KSBW Action News 8 begins with breaking news.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Erin Clark. Dan Green is off tonight. We will get to our top story in just a moment. But first, we do have some breaking news tonight out of Carmel Valley. Firefighters are fighting a structure fire on Escaline Road. Started around 10:15 tonight. Fire dispatch tells us that people have been evacuated, but at this point, we do not know how many. Again, firefighters are on scene right now. We will continue to follow this story on air and online. Our top story tonight, Governor Gavin Newsom releasing the state's annual May budget revise. Governor wants to spend $14.5 billion to pay down debt and build up reserves over the next year. Governor's revised budget brings California spending to a record-breaking $213.5 billion. One proposal that has remained in Governor Newsom's budget, a water tax. The governor says the money is needed to help bring clean water to low-income farm communities. But the tax comes as California sits on a multi-billion-dollar surplus. Action News reporter Christopher Salas has more on the proposed tax.
Now, that proposal would be an additional surcharge of about $1 per month. And you mentioned farming communities. This here is an interactive map that shows where exactly water is out of compliance. And as you can see, it's very concentrated in the San Joaquin Valley. When we zoom into our area, you can see the problem is concentrated along the Salinas River.
The idea is that if everybody puts a little bit towards helping their sister or brother systems that are smaller, we can close the gap and someday say we don't have 1 million people that aren't drinking safe drinking water.
But it's not exactly that clear cut, because if you ask about the water tax, you get murky results.
I mean, it's good to help people, but there's other ways you can help people without taxing people for water.
$12 a year, I'm in.
Now, $1 a month may be a drop in the bucket for some, but for Governor Newsom, he's expecting this new tax to bring in $140 million a year. But it still has many questioning. Why propose a new tax when the state has more than $20 billion in surplus?
The idea here is that surpluses come and go. So if we committed a certain percentage of a surplus to this job, and then in 2 years there's no longer a surplus, then we wouldn't be able to continue helping these communities.
For Newsom to get his water tax through, he'll need a 2/3 vote in both houses, which could be an upstream battle from those even within his own party. Central Coast Senator Ana Caballero represents many of the communities with non-compliant drinking water. Caballero is one of those proposing to tap into the state's surplus, instead of adding an additional tax to help get clean drinking water to the 1 million people without it. She authored SB 669. The bill would create a safe drinking water trust fund. Money would only go into the fund in years where there's a surplus. But the state worries that's an unreliable source of income to fix a critical problem.
We have a regular and predictable amount of money that comes in every year. We can start closing the gap on systems that are not delivering safe drinking water to their customers.
And Newsom's proposal also calls for a tax on dairy farmers and fertilizer. As for Caballero's bill, it's scheduled for a committee hearing on Monday. Aaron.
All right. Thank you, Christopher. Some of the other highlights of the governor's proposed budget: it spends almost the $15 billion to pay down debt and build up reserves, as we mentioned. Also adds $150 million to help local governments deal with homelessness, and includes an additional $40 million to deal with wildfires and natural disasters. The Trump administration finalized a plan today that would open up more than 700,000 acres for oil and gas drilling and fracking here on the Central Coast. So the sites you see in orange span 11 counties, with much of the federal property sitting in San Benito and Monterey counties, two places where fights over fracking have erupted in the past. In 2016, 56% of Monterey County voted to ban fracking, but that may not be enough.
Well, Measure Z will protect Monterey County or prevent fracking on private lands at this time, but probably not on federal lands.
However, BLM regulations allow California's governor to file a protest if he finds the plans inconsistent with state and local laws. The plan does lift a 5-year moratorium on drilling on public lands and expand proposals under review during the Obama administration. Investors will be keeping a very close eye on Wall Street. Tonight, President Trump's tariff increase on $200 billion in Chinese imports has taken effect, raising U.S. tensions with Beijing. The administration raised the import taxes on those goods from 10% to 25%. China immediately responded tonight, saying it will retaliate. Police in Santa Cruz have arrested 38-year-old Jason Schreiber. He is accused of hitting a woman in Santa Cruz. The incident was caught on camera. You can see he walks up to the woman, taps her on the shoulder, and then hits her in the face. Happened near the intersection of Pacific Avenue and Birch Lane on April 27th. Today, an officer spotted him downtown and arrested him after getting a positive ID from the victim. Schreiber is facing felony battery charges. Police are investigating a new round of business break-ins along the Soquel River corridor. The burglaries started last month, thieves hitting businesses from Aptos to Soquel. Over the last 2 months, 17 businesses in all have been burglarized. Thieves have been targeting cash, and in one instance, they walked off with 2 safes.
They just took some dollars out of here, and they took a cigar box, Partagas cigar box that for years has just had 1s, 5s, and 10s underneath just for emergency. I guess it was an emergency for somebody, so.
So far, no arrests have been made. An accused drug dealer and former UC Santa Cruz student was in court today. 24-year-old Matthew Hutchings pled not guilty to the sale and possession of drugs. Earlier this week, police found LSD, ketamine, a hash oil lab, and 32 pounds of magic mushrooms at his home. 2 other people are also charged in this case, Calvin Cortez and Daniel Cudahy. A 4th person was issued a citation. Hutchings' bail has been set at $250,000. The cleanup at the Santa Cruz homeless camp behind the Ross store is almost finished. Here's a look at how the camp looked this afternoon, a far cry of what it looked like just a few days ago. The camp is clean, but another controversy has surfaced. Thousands of used needles were discovered at the homeless camp, distributed by a group called Harm Reduction Roadshow and run by a woman, Denise Ellerk. She now wants to expand to Watsonville, Felton, and Harvey West Park, but opposition continues to build, with law enforcement and county leaders sending letters to the state requesting that that application be denied.
No, that is not a solution. That's a death sentence. Harm reduction is great when it's done properly. Just handing out needles with no accountability, no oversight, and no medical involvement, no triage, that's a death sentence. That's enabling an addict to kill themselves slowly, and it's a shame.
The sheriff and Santa Cruz police chief oppose any expansion of the program that does not include more accountability, oversight, and a plan to reduce needle litter. The deadline to submit letters to the state, either for or against the expansion, is May 24th. And new at 11, a ribbon cutting today at the Monterey Bay Aquarium's new high-tech education center on Cannery Row. 25,000 square foot building is equipped with 4 state-of-the-art labs, each with its own saltwater aquarium, video monitors, and iPads. It's designed for students to get very close to the animals, as well as getting some hands-on experience with problem solving. School groups will start using the center come September. The aquarium, of course, is also well known for its jellies, fish, and otters, but they're also doing some trailblazing work with seabirds. Their newest ambassador is a precocious red-footed booby named Sula. Her training has been so successful that she is now interacting with guests on the aquarium floor. Take a look.
Yes, it is time to talk. Do you want to say something? No? Okay.
Meet the Monterey Bay Aquarium's newest ambassador, Sula. She is the only red-footed booby in a zoo or an aquarium in North America. She came into their care 2 years ago after being rescued with a fishing hook through her neck. She's a survivor of something known as bycatch.
Bycatch is when a fisherman catches something they don't mean to. Unfortunately, a lot of seabirds suffer because of the bycatch issue. We realized really quickly that her personality and her curiosity would mean that she'd be a really great ambassador animal. So being able to come out in front of the public and educate our guests about ways that they can help red-footed boobies and seabirds all around the world.
Senior aviculturist Nikki Odoricio is Sula's trainer. She's been working with her just about every day for the last 2 years. She has spent thousands of hours observing and studying Sula. Their bond is undeniable.
With me, since she and I work so closely together, for example, she's preening me right now and she's kind of letting me preen her too. This is something that only she and I do together. We have a really close bond.
Nikki has successfully trained Sula to fly on cue, get on a scale for weight checks, and to even allow aviculturists to touch her for body condition checks.
You want to step up? Good girl. Do you want to play with your plant? No, I just want to hang out. That's okay too. So one other cool thing that she just showed off is, if you notice, when I asked her to step up, I didn't touch her foot, I didn't pick a foot up, I just held my hand in front and asked. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much.
Starting this month, you'll see the two of them out on the aquarium floor, educating guests about red-footed boobies and some of the challenges they face in the wild, things like bycatch. One way you can help is to download the aquarium's Seafood Watch app.
The Seafood Watch app is a super easy way to help red-footed boobies and seabirds and fish throughout the world's oceans, just by making a more sustainable choice.
So you want to be a superhero for seabirds? Download the KSBW app and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Every week, we'll be giving you unprecedented access to Sula as she embarks on her ambassadorship at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Coming up on Action News, arrested at Disney World, the prescription medication that landed a grandmother in handcuffs. And a vending machine for cars. We'll show you the new way to buy a new ride, as well as the closest one here on the Central Coast, or to the Central Coast, I should say. First, though, here's our Chief Meteorologist, Lee Solomon, with your wake-up weather.
Kind of mild out there right now. One of our warmer nights. Of course, it's completely overcast, too. Upper 50s right now, 59 and 60 over in San Jose. Of course, we'll drop off a few more degrees late tonight. Relative humidities are pretty high, and we've been watching the rain showers up in the Sierra tonight. 50 to 54 by morning. We'll keep the slight chance of a shower. Could be some patchy mist and drizzle. We'll talk about your Friday, your weekend, and Mother's Day, all coming up in just a few minutes.
Controversy over the Mueller investigation continues as President Trump heads to Paris. And wind-driven fires in Southern California burning thousands of acres. And our top story, devastation in Butte County. An entire town destroyed by a fire that has now proved deadly. We have team coverage.
Coverage you can count on. This is KSBW Action News 8, live from Studio A.
Good afternoon, I'm Brittany Nielsen. Thank you for joining us. And we do begin this afternoon with that Butte County wildfire exploding in size. This fire more than tripled in size overnight and has now turned deadly. It has grown to at least 70,000 acres, wiping out the town of Paradise in the process. We have team coverage this afternoon, and we begin that with Action News anchor Lauren Seaver. What can you tell us?
Yeah, Brittany, just breaking news out of Butte County. Cal firefighters say 5 people have died as a result of the Camp Fire. All were in Paradise. Mandatory evacuations still underway right now, and right now we're getting a better idea of the destruction this fire has caused. Thousands of buildings have burned. The evacuation zone grew overnight to parts of Chico as the flames continue to move west. Fire has burned at least 70,000 acres, is just 5% contained right now. Firefighters across California working to contain it as the wind fuels those flames.
We are basically looking at a very significant, dangerous weather pattern through the rest of this weekend and into early next week throughout all of California.
As we mentioned, the biggest area affected by this fire is the town of Paradise. Action News reporter Mike Tassell from her sister station KCRA in Sacramento is in Paradise with a look at the damage.
A dramatic example of the damage here. For those familiar with the town of Paradise, this right here is the Safeway. This is the Safeway shopping center. You could see how fire has torn through the entire interior of this, gutted it. In fact, this morning there's still some little licks of flame, and you could see how the water main just spewing out water this morning. This is also that area that includes the Round Table Pizza. It is a shopping complex, strip mall area. If you keep going down to the left, you'll just see how this extends. The entire shopping center destroyed. Shopping carts littered around here is a clear symbol of the fire that was right here. Again, this is right off of Clark and Elliott. This is synonymous with a lot of the damage we've seen. Now, there are areas where homes have survived, some other businesses have survived, but this is not unusual in the town of Paradise. The Safeway complex gutted by fire, and there's still wind. The good news here, no active, real structured flames that are threatening anything. This is all now just surveying the damage as we are getting daylight. In the town of Paradise, Mike Tassell.
And we want to turn now to meteorologist Art Jarrett, because Art, we know the winds, as you've been telling us, have been playing a huge role in these fires.
Right. This they were saying, not only in Mike's package, but of course the officials were saying that it's going to be a devastating weekend. Why? Because the winds are going to pick up again on Sunday, and I'll show you just how. In fact, you see the campfire, how the fire is spread downhill right over to Highway 99. Seems to be protected right now, in some cases, by the Feather River working up this area along Highway 70. Now let's take a peek at what's happening. We're going to put this into motion. You're going to see some of the winds there, but I'm going to switch over to this graphic to show you from 2,300 feet down to 1,700 feet down to 197 feet. These winds pick up speed, they compress. As we go into Sunday right here, you can see how strong those winds are going to be right back into Chico, and they're going to push that curtain of fire right across 99, right through Chico and beyond. In fact, we're going to see these winds continue to do this. In fact, they'll be switching around as we get into Monday and Tuesday as this fire will continue to rage. The air quality you can see is going to be from moderate and yellow all the way to unhealthy for sensitive groups and very unhealthy for most as you get down to Gridley and working downward into portions of Yuba County. Now, we're also going to see that this is not just only this fire. We have a lot going on. There is the smoke coming in from this location. You can see, I'll show you that in my next hit, but there are 15 wildfires in California to talk about later. Brittany, back to you.
Art, you talked about air quality. That's the question in Santa Cruz today, and that's where Action News reporter Phil Gomez is with more on that. Phil, what can you tell us this afternoon?
Well, good afternoon, Brittany. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, I can tell you there is no active fires here in Santa Cruz County, and the smoke is not from any of the fires that we recently encountered. This was all blown in by the winds from the Camp Fire in Butte County. The Monterey Bay Air Unified Pollution Control District has listed the air quality in Santa Cruz County as unhealthy. The poor air quality has triggered schools in Santa Cruz, the San Lorenzo Valley, and at Loma Prieta to take precautions. They plan to keep students indoors for most of the day. Loma Prieta School has even modified its class schedule so that the children won't be exposed to the thick smoke. And we have new information about those two fires in the Santa Cruz Mountain. CAL FIRE's ongoing investigation revealed the Pogonip and the Rincon fires were started by illegal campsites. In all, CAL FIRE has responded to 25 vegetation fires in the past 2 weeks. So the bottom line is that the experts are saying if you have any respiratory issues at all, you might want to stay at home with the doors and windows closed. In Santa Cruz, Phil Gomez, KSBW, Action News 8.
Yeah, Phil, a critical issue for some. We appreciate your report this afternoon. Now to Southern California. This is the Woolsey fire, which continued to spread overnight, moving from Ventura County into LA County. This fire, as you can see here, also consuming homes. People living in 1,200 homes near this fire forced to get out, and CAL FIRE says 8,000 acres have burned there. No word on any containment. And the Hill Fire, also burning in Ventura County, it has reached 6,100 acres. No containment to report here either. You can see that heavy smoke and the intense flames there right off the side of the highway. That actually forced several roads to close Thursday, including Highway 101 in both directions. We want to transition now to news out of Washington, where protesters across America are speaking out about President Trump's choice to lead the Justice Department. Many think he's biased against the Russia investigation. Action News reporter Tracy Potts has more on this story.
Two sources tell NBC that Matt Whitaker was seen inside the Justice Department as President Trump's man. Now he oversees the Russia investigation after writing that it's at risk of becoming a witch hunt. Day one on the job, and Acting Attorney General Matt Whitaker is already sparking protests.
Absolutely no one
in the United States of America is above the law.
Trump is not above the law.
Rallies popped up all over the country, from Seattle to Florida to Chicago,
where they must stop and follow the law and let Mueller continue his work.
Robert Mueller's new boss has been openly critical of the Russia investigation, even suggesting how to shut it down.
That Attorney General doesn't fire Bob Mueller, but he just reduces the budget so low that his investigation grinds to almost a halt.
That's why critics insist Whitaker should not oversee the investigation.
Because he has prejudged the issue, and because he obviously is prepared to do what the president wants.
But the White House says there's no reason for Whitaker to hand off oversight like Jeff Sessions did.
Why would he be recused? Because CNN keeps playing a clip of what he said as a private citizen?
Democrats are asking the White House and law enforcement to make sure records from Mueller's Russia investigation are not destroyed. And they warned that destroying any of that information could constitute a federal crime. From Washington, I'm Tracy Potts.
And President Trump and the First Lady on their way to Paris today. They'll be there for a World War I memorial event. But before the president left, he signed a proclamation denying asylum to migrants who enter the U.S. illegally through the U.S.-Mexico border. In Salinas now, students at Laurelwood Elementary School starting their school day by honoring veterans today ahead of this Veterans Day weekend. Students singing song to veterans who are seated in the audience there. And one of those veterans was Salinas' mayor, Joe Gunter.
These young people put together, along with their teachers, probably one of the finest programs I've seen, honoring the veterans of everywhere in the United States.
Well, the school held 2 assemblies this morning, also that all of the students at the school could be involved. Still ahead today at noon, if you have a nut allergy, you can start boarding your flight early on One Airlines. And Americans splurging on tech gifts this year. We'll have a preview of the hottest items when we come back.